What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, we have some pretty massive news to talk about that nobody else actually has. I want to give my very good friend Sway a shout out as he broke this news to me live when we were doing a podcast together, and we talked about a little bit more when the podcast ended. This is not like an inside scoop. It's just something that he saw that I think nobody else saw, so I want to give credit where credit's due. The three main leads of WB Montreal have left, and they're each doing their own thing. Each of them are their own kind of unique circumstance. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what that means for kind of the future of this specific team. Now, remember, WB Montreal, two different teams, right? Team that made Gotham Knights, and they're making a new game. So that's the team that I assume this is going to affect. That team is making another co-op kind of multiplayer game. We saw that through job postings. I think, or I hope at least, maybe Teen Titans, right? They can learn from the best of Gotham Knights, cut out the bad stuff, and if you could do a Teen Titans game where you can play it cooperatively, I think that'd be really awesome. There's also that second team that's working on a single-player game. Now, that team's been working on it for 2-3 years. That team is not, obviously, the Gotham Knights team, right? So it doesn't really get affected by it. But let's go through this. So one thing that I did immediately when I heard about Patrick Redding, and that's the first one we heard, Patrick Redding has left WB Montreal. It's like, oh, well, that's something kind of big that nobody's talked about, right? He left in July. So he left like a month ago, actually less than a month ago, right? So he actually went back. He's at Ubisoft now, Ubisoft Montreal, I believe, which I don't know for sure. Off the top of my head, I think that's where the Sands of Time remake went, but that could totally be wrong. It just kind of rings a bell. Maybe it's Assassin's Creed. That's arguably the biggest name of the three. However, the other two you may have heard before, because one of them, the executive producer, Fleur Marty, right? And she is pretty darn famous. I think we saw a lot of her tweets, obviously her input in the game. She went to a lot of events leading into the game. She was the executive producer. Now, she's an interesting case. If you go to her info right now, what I believe to be happening here is she still works at WB Montreal, but something that I actually have found by looking at all these positions of people, where they're working, what they're working on. It seems to me that a pretty big piece of WB Montreal is actually helping Monolith on the Wonder Woman game. So if you go to her page, what she is her name is executive producer, right? That's what she was on Gotham Knights, and that's in her job experience too. Executive producer, permanent full-time, June 2021 to present, and so again, that's just the length of time. Currently, she's the executive producer for Wonder Woman. And then past 2018 to 2022, she was the leading production for Gotham Knights. But if you go to the credits of Gotham Knights, it says executive producer, and it's her. So she pretty much keeps the same job, but she's still at WB Montreal, okay? And that's literally in her experience, she's still there. But she's working for Wonder Woman now. And again, this kind of led me to look at a couple other people, just random, not like the top of the top, but just random people that work at WB Montreal. And there's a fair amount of them that say they're working on Wonder Woman. And this is not that surprising. WB Montreal, classically, as you've maybe seen in the past, they do help out with the other WB games. I think there's actually a pretty big piece of them that helped on Hogwarts Legacy. Once you beat Hogwarts Legacy, you look at the credits of it, there's actually quite a few people from WB Montreal in that listing. I think there's even a couple from Monolith. And then the final name is somebody that I kept forgetting his name, but he's always seemed like a really good guy to me. I always saw him on Twitter, Jeff Eleanor. So Jeff Eleanor was the game director of Gotham Knights. Now, if you go on his, actually either or, his Twitter, he just took off the parts where he talked about Gotham Knights. So that was kind of the first indication that I had that, okay, he's gone too. He was the last one that I actually looked up. But if you go to his page, yep, he did also leave. He actually left, or it says here, he left in January of 2023. So he must have just been something that I wasn't paying attention to. He left a while ago. He was, again, game director. Now he's creative director at a company called Stealth. And if you look at just at his profile, like bio, creative director, stealth mode startup. So I'll be honest, I don't know what that is, but I don't really need to, I think, for the video here. I think all we need to know is that's not WB Montreal. So, I mean, I look at that as pretty massive. The narrative director, so like the head writer, she is still there. Okay, I think Leanne is her name, so she's still there. But everybody, like these top three, these are actually the first three names that pop up at the end of Gotham Knights. When you beat Gotham Knights and it goes to the names, these are the first three. All three of them are gone. So, what does that mean for the future of the studio? Well, I really don't know if you can blame them too much for what happened to Gotham. I mean, I'm sure they have some of the blame, maybe some of them more than others, but I feel like certain decisions probably weren't even theirs to make. People probably even above them made the decisions. They had to like execute them. I think those are pretty big names, like specifically Patrick Redding. He's been around the block. He's been around a long time. I respect the guy. A prominent name, like a very big name, and all three of them are gone. So they lost their executive producer. Now, I guess Fleur, she could maybe go in and out. She still technically works for them, but she's helping another team. So like the thing with her is like, well, why isn't she the executive producer on the next WB Montreal game? Do you see what I'm saying? Like that's I guess where I'm at with her, because the Gotham Knights team is making a new game. So why isn't she producing that game, I guess, is my issue there. And then obviously Patrick just completely gone, and Jeff Eleanor completely gone. So they lost their creative director and their game director. And those are pretty big deals. Those are like the top positions. Obviously they don't do everything. It's not just because of them that a game comes out, but it's kind of their vision, and they're just very important to development. And I feel like if any studio were to lose those two at the same, not even the same time, one was in January, one was in July, so I guess the same year, 6 months apart or 5 months apart. Normally that's a big deal. Normally that's talked about, but I feel like maybe not everybody is keeping their eyes peeled on WB Montreal. So there you go. I wonder about their next game. It doesn't make me like super optimistic. I guess it's a clean slate, not just for the studio, but also because it's going to have new leadership, right? Like whoever's in charge of the next game from the Gotham Knights team, not necessarily the next WB Montreal game, because that would have been a different team entirely, right? So when the Gotham Knights team makes a new game, it's a fresh slate for anybody that worked on both. And then also it's a fresh slate for literally like the heads, because it'll basically be a brand new vision. So very interesting. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure as always you're subscribed, bell icon turned on. If you want to support me anywhere else, check out our Twitter, check out our Discord, check out my other YouTube channels. All the links are in the description below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.